Development of program goals and objectives. Program goals are broad statements on the overall purpose of a program to meet a defined problem. An example of a program goal for a community that has identifiable problem of dental caries among school-aged children would be to improve the oral health of school-aged children in Community X. Program objectives are more specific and describe in a measurable way as the desired end result of program activities. The objectives should specify the following. First is what, or simply to identify the nature of the situation and condition to be attained. Second is the extent, or the scope and magnitude of the situation and condition to be attained. Third is who. Specify the particular group or portion of the environment in which attainment is desired. Fourth is where, or simply the geographic areas of the program. Fifth is when, or the date by which the desired situation and condition is intended to exist. An objective might state, by 2012, more than 90% of the population ages 6 to 17 years in Community X will not have lost any teeth as a result of caries, and at least 40% will be caries-free. This is known as an outcome objective. It provides the means of measuring quantitatively the outcome of the specific objective. Also, this approach helps the evaluator and the community knows both where the program is and where it hopes to be with respect to a given health problem. Lastly, it aids in establishing a realistic timetable for reducing or preventing principal health problems. Second, objectives are the specific avenues by which goals are met. A process objectives state a specific process by which a public health problem can be reduced and prevented. For example, by 2005, Community X will have a public fluoride program to guarantee access to fluoride exposure via the following. First, fluoridation of the public water supply to the optimum level. Second, appropriately monitored fluoridation of school water supplies in areas where community fluoridation is impossible or impractical. Third, initiation of the most cost-effective topical or systemic fluoride supplement programs available to all schools if both objectives 1 and 2 are impossible. Fourth, provision of topical fluoride application for persons with rampant caries and use of pit and fissure sealants were indicated. Once the problem has been identified and program goals and objectives have been established, describing a solution to or a reduction of the problem can be attained. The next step is to state how to bring about the desired results. This area of program planning is referred to as program activities, and it describes how the objectives will be accomplished. The activities include 3 components. First, what is going to be done? Second, who will be doing it? And third, when it will be done. In planning these program activities, it is important to carefully consider the type of resources available as well as the program constraints. The resource identification. The selection of resources for an activity such as personnel, equipment and supplies, facilities, and financial resources must be determined by considering what would be most effective, adequate, efficient, and appropriate for the tasks to be accomplished. These are some criteria that are commonly followed to determine what resources should be used. First is the appropriateness. It is the most suitable resources to get the job done. Second criteria is the adequacy, the extent or degree to sources to get the job done in which the resources would complete the job. The third one is the effectiveness. It shows how capable the resources are at completing the job. And lastly, the efficiency, the dollar cost and the amount of time invested to complete the job. When planning any program, There are usually as many reasons not to do something as there are reasons to do it. The former are usually considered to be roadblocks or obstacles to achieving a certain goal or objective. What should be determined at this point are the most obvious constraints that are associated with meeting program objectives. By identifying these constraints early in the planning stages, one can modify the design of the program and thereby create a more practical and realistic plan. Constraints may result from organizational policies, resource limitations, or characteristics of the community. One of the best ways to identify constraints is to bring together a group of concerned citizens who might be involved in or affected by the project. As a group that is familiar with the local politics and community structures, these individuals not only can identify the constraints but also can offer alternative solutions and strategies for meeting the goals and objectives of the project. Being aware of the existing constraints and given the available resources, the planner should then consider alternative courses of action that might be effective in attaining the objectives. It is important to generate a sufficient number of alternatives so that out of that number, at least one may be considered acceptable. The planner must be aware of those alternatives that sound good on the surface but may have certain limitations when closely examined. With limited resources, the planner needs to consider the anticipated costs and the effectiveness of each alternative. If the preventive measure were considered to be cost-effective as well as practical to implement, the planner would then choose that measure as the best out of all the alternatives given. The implementation, supervision, evaluation, and revision. The process of putting the plan into operation is referred to as the implementation phase. This phase is ongoing in situations where close supervision and evaluation of the program will ensure effective operations. The implementation process involves individuals, organizations, and the community. Only through teamwork between the individual and the environment can the implementation phase be successful. An implementation strategy for each activity is complete when the following questions have been answered. First is why, the effect of the objective to be achieved. Second is what, the activities required to achieve the objective. Third is who, the individuals responsible for each activity. Fourth is when, the chronologic sequence of activities. Fifth is how, the materials, media, methods, and techniques to be used. And lastly, how much, a cost estimate of materials and time. To develop an implementation strategy, planners must know what specific activity they want to do. The most effective method is to work backwards to identify the events that must occur before initiating the activity. Monitoring, evaluating, and revising the program. Once it has been implemented, the program requires continuous surveillance of all activities. The program's success is determined by monitoring how well the program is meeting its stated objectives, how well its individuals are doing their jobs, how well equipment functions, and how appropriate and adequate facilities are. Before problems arise in any of these areas, adjustments must be made to fine-tune the program. Evaluation, both informal and formal, is a necessary and important aspect of the program. Evaluation allows us to, first, meet the progress of each activity. Second, measure the effectiveness of each activity. Third, to identify problems in carrying out the activities. Fourth is to plan revision and modification. And the last one is to justify the dollar cost of administering the program and, if necessary, justify seeking additional funds. Each objective should be examined periodically to determine how well it is meeting the program goals. The objective should be stated in measurable terms so that a comparison can be made of what the objective intended to accomplish and what it actually accomplished. Evaluation should address the quality of what is being done. Thank you for listening.